Indeed for staying with us here on the Sunday edition. My name is Peter Wakaba, and my able panel is still here. Mutinda Kavemba, political analyst. Mark Pichache, he is of course a communication strategist. Dismas Moko, political risk analyst, and Hesbon Will, he is a political communications expert. On this part of the show, we want to discuss matters around democratic space, and indeed the fact that this has expanded in Kenya over the decades to a point where Kenyans can today really have the sort of conversation that we're trying to have here and be able to put the perspectives out in relative comfort. Now, in the last few days, we have seen events that maybe have brought this into question. One of the things that stand out is the arrest of Dr. David Ndii in Diani in Mombasa County. He was there, as he said, on holiday with his family. When the police called on him and then proceeded to arrest him in relation with a conversation that he had had earlier on, well, in the run-up to the elections. We want to listen into what exactly he had to say about that arrest and the consequences and the events that led up to that event and what happened afterwards. Take a listen.
I was picked up. I was abducted at the Leopard Beach Hotel where I was with my family. And I was informed that these are CID officers. They said they were acting on the orders of the director of CID, Ndewa Mohoro. We drove the whole night. We were in two cars, so I think there was 8 of us, 4 in each car. And arrived at CID headquarters in the morning, probably about 8 o'clock in the morning, until I was invited to an interview or interrogation, if you like. I was then advised that I was there on incitement charges. In the end, what turned out to be perhaps the piece of evidence that they tabled as to something which I had said, which was incitement, turned out to be a piece of fake news.
But I want to say this for free to this government. The people of Kenya will not be intimidated into submission. The will of the people of Kenya cannot be suppressed through arrests, through prosecutions, through blackmail, through intimidation, through tear gas, through bullets, through water cannons. You cannot rule a people against their will. The will of the people of Kenya shall ultimately prevail.
Had any issue, one, ordinarily you would invite someone and tell them, you invite them to come and record a statement. That never happened. Secondly, you don't wait for somebody to leave Nairobi to go to Mombasa, then you go and pounce on them, especially when he's with the family. It is obviously intended to rain terror on him and the family. Thirdly, why you'd go to an hotel room and start searching an hotel room? If you thought anybody had anything, surely you'd perhaps get a warrant and then approach them in their house or their offices. But more importantly, to arrest someone in Mombasa, sneak them overnight to Nairobi is part of the torture. So you can see that the idea is not quite the charges. The idea is the intimidation around it. And that is what is highly regrettable, because that is not acceptable under the law.
Well, and the various positions around that conversation, the arrest of David Ndii, and this, of course, is a pointer to several things that we have already said. And what we want to talk about right now, the fact of the matter is that the Constitution does guarantee democratic space, the ability to be able to speak your mind and, well, exercise that right so long as it doesn't affect other people in adverse fashion. Kavemba, I want to start off with you this time. And even the fact that Dr. David Ndii had to be brought back to Nairobi speaks to the fact that devolution is not working as it should be, because we'd expect you to be arrested and there'd be capacity to deal with you in Diani.
Now, I think whatever comments he made them in the city.
Yes.
So that is probably, that explains why he was brought back to the city. But what I want to say is that personally, I did not see any failure of our constitutional safeguards in all that. Because one thing that is very clear is that our constitutional safeguards is that a person should not be held in custody for more than 24 hours before being presented in court.
Yes.
And the honest truth is that the government complied with that. David D was presented in court within the 24 hours. Actually, the other thing that came out very clear, and that's why I'm saying that we need to give our constitution a chance, is that it is very clear the office of the DPP is the one that decides what a person gets charged with.
Yes.
And the office of the DPP said that he should be given a police bond and the files taken to him so that he decides what it is they will charge Mr. Dr. David
But
D.
why not do it in Mombasa? Because we even have a high court and competent jurisdictions there. The DPP is devolved to various places. We have prosecution and such legal
it is like I've told you, it is about who is handling the case. If
Yes.
the case happened in Nairobi,
Yes.
it is most likely that the people who are dealing with
The
it
jurisdiction.
yes, they were, and that happens everywhere. If today I commit an offense in Machakos, it will be very difficult for them to bring me to Nairobi. They will deal with me in Machakos. So the matter that was being investigated is a matter that took place in Nairobi. So the investigating officers were most likely from Nairobi, and that explains why he was brought here. The most important thing to me is that his rights were not violated to the extent that within 24 hours, he was presented to court and he was not denied bail. For those, there are young Kenyans who probably do not know where we have come from as a country. It is important for them to know that there was a time that there was something called detention without trial, and it was in law, that you could be locked up to 9 years without even ever being taken to court, and it was within the law. So when we talk about the constitutional provisions, it is against such a background that we need to look at how different are things being done in this country. And the other thing is that it was very clear. You see, I've seen that there are people very keen on using the word abduction.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't think that qualifies to be an abduction, because everybody was aware. Even the family, they even tried to follow up. When he was picked, these people, Dr. David D himself says, they introduced themselves as police officers. How then does that turn and become an abduction? So the thing is, as for that particular incident, I do not see why people are crying out, because at the end of the day, Dr. David D was taken to court, and the due process of the law is what took precedence. He was given bond, and he was released.
Yes, I want to bring in Hesbon at this point, because we're almost out of time. And Hesbon, in about 2 minutes, talk to us about this incident and the fact that there have been concerns that this is an indicator towards the fact that we are rolling back the political freedoms that we've enjoyed in the past and that democratic space is shrinking.
I think rolling back is a polite word. The word is we are retrogressing to the dark days that we had. And this is pure intimidation. It is reminding me of, Dennis Brutus's poem that talks about sirens, knuckles, and boots.
Yes.
You look at what has happened in the recent past, what happened to the cultured Jimmy Wanjigi, a shrewd businessman who is a key economic player in this country, being arrested in the manner that he was arrested. You can only imagine what happens to common Wananchis from Suna East like myself. Now, you look at what happened to David D and the narratives. The manner of arrest is choreographed in such a way that the conversations started on social media. And it is more of an abduction. I want to agree with the guys who are calling it an abduction, because the only person who knew he was arrested is David D. So you can imagine the torture that the people around him went through. And to a large extent, it also calls to question, the way we've devolved our systems. That if we have a centralized security system that is operated from the capital county, Nairobi, and security forces can be sent everywhere to go and met violence on people in Migori, because that is what they do, rather than provide security, then it caused a lot of some of these people in power into, questions that we need to attend to. But to situate it broadly, I think this is a ploy just to paint a picture that the people behind the People's Assembly, the people behind Raila's swearing in, ceremony on the 12th, are actually dangerous people to this country. That is basically what I'm seeing.
Yes. Mark, I want to bring you at this juncture. And the question here is, in the view of what happened there, and of course the perspective that Dr. Ndi might have been at the center of the agitation towards the implementation of the people's assemblies and that sort of thing. It would then be seen to be clamping down on the people trying to exercise their power more closely to the grassroots.
We as a country are treading on very dangerous ground.
Yes.
Why it's dangerous ground is because, number one, in the last 1 year, we've successfully managed to demonize every institution there is, from the police to the IEBC to the judiciary, meaning that our interpretation of how our institutions should carry themselves is always at the beck and call of our politicians. Very dangerous territory. And I'll give you an example. In the United States of America, we've seen video upon video upon which the police have acted in manners that can be construed to be illegal and detrimental to public good.
Excessive.
However, there being real issues concerning real people who've lost their lives or have been brutalized by the American police, they've not demonized the entire police structure. And this is a very important rule that Kenya needs to learn. Every institution on the face of this earth has a majority of good people and a minority of bad people. The reason why systems exist is to filter out the bad people.
Yes.
Now, in the August 8th petition, there's an unsung hero we don't talk about. His name is Fazul Muhammad.
Yes.
Fazul Muhammad, maybe in an attempt to please somebody, raided Africa.
Yes.
And upon him raiding Africa, Raila Odinga and team came out and said, based on this, we will file a petition. Okay? And this is my take concerning this issue. Number one, we have a police force that is undergoing reform.
Yes.
It is not reformed yet. This you know from any traffic stop you've ever had in this country. You know for a fact that they're still being reformed. Now, that police officer who stopped you, is he acting at the behest of the presidency or on his own behest or on the behest of the history and the culture that he's inherited within the police force? And in this country, we have a lot of remnants of overzealous civil servants who always attempt to overreach and try to please whoever they think will be pleased by their actions, okay? Because I really doubt that a strategist was asked in terms of what is the benefit of arresting D in such a manner. Okay? So let's understand a few things. Number one, we need to isolate the idea that every institution, if one member does something wrong, then the whole institution is messed up. It's the same mistake we made with the IEBC. There are certain individuals who did something wrong. But the IEBC is not a wrong institution. That's what we need to do.
Yes, I want to bring Dismas here to start to wind it up for us. And the question then is, isolated incident or part of an orchestrated series of events that is meant to curtail the freedoms of the people?
Let me begin from where Mark has stopped. And his statements like about the police service, about reforms, of course reforms is an ongoing process. There's no way you would say that now we are done with the reforms, let's break into music and dance. But he says there are a few guys who are overzealous. Now that's the question. Does the government punish the overzealous guys?
And can we
see
that happening?
Like for instance, calm down. Let me finish this. When you talk about a few overzealous staffers at IBC or commissioners, were they punished or were they rewarded? For the policemen who are overzealous, stepping on human rights, do they get police promotions? Does the IPOA is talking about have the capacity to investigate the policemen? Maybe that's a conversation for another day. But you know, Wakaba, it's so important for us to realize that when you talk about human rights and civil liberties, they're not granted by the state. If you look at our constitution, the Bill of Rights, actually the state is invited to proactively protect those civil liberties. For instance, the government cannot come to your home and tell you, today is Sunday, go to church. Or the people, freedom of association, assembly, and we must call a spade a spade. That the current administration is proactively suppressing people's freedoms. If you start to the media houses, and I know very few people will admit it, but the government using the advertising budget has been controlling how the media works. If you're going to run stories they don't like, an advert is going to be withdrawn, which can compromise on your profits. For instance, what happens to Dr. David Indi and Jim Wanjigi, is to antagonize people, to make people that know that if you're going to express your views freely, if you're going to associate freely, and the overzealous public servant is talking about don't like it, then you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Okay.
So we must proactively ask the state to defend those civil liberties and those civil rights. When you go to the US, the mother of all these things, even the President Trump knows that if you disagree with them, you can insult him, you can call him a dog. He may not agree with it, but he'll say it's protected by the First Amendment.
Okay, indeed. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we are completely out of time. We are actually... I will ask you to hold it because I'm actually being told that we have even eaten into the next segment's time. It is a discussion, of course, that really leaves a lot to be said, and one that we will continue to try to speak into in the subsequent bulletins and that sort of thing. But we want to close this show by looking at some of the past. Because